The glass cage. In the year 2034, humanity reached for the stars and built a prison around the world. This is the story of the 1 million satellites that promised infinite knowledge and the 48 hours that sealed our fate in orbital debris. This is the story of hubris, collapse, and the 40-year struggle to pierce the veil. Act 1. The Grand Deployment. March 2034. 8 years after the Federal Communications Commission received the most audacious application in history, 1 million satellites for orbital data centers, the largest constellation ever conceived, designed to bypass Earth's strained energy grid and house artificial intelligence in the vacuum of space.
Launch cadence is at maximum sustainable rate, Sarah. We're deploying 60 compute nodes per Starship flight, each one adding 60 terabits per second of network capacity. The optical inter-satellite links are performing flawlessly. We're essentially building a single brain that spans 800 kilometers of altitude.
And each one of those brain cells requires 1,200 square meters of radiator surface to reject just 1 megawatt of waste heat, Marcus. The Stefan Boltzmann law doesn't care about your ambitions. Those massive radiator wings you're deploying, they're turning low Earth orbit into a kinetic minefield.
The ELVO algorithms are handling collision avoidance perfectly. We're executing millions of micro-adjustments daily, and the crash clock is still manageable. Sure, it's dropped from 164 days to 18 hours, but we're building the future here.
18 hours, Marcus. Do you understand what that means? If your precious optical mesh network fails for even a few hours, we get cascading collisions that could destroy everything in low Earth orbit. And that's not even counting the atmospheric contamination.
Dr. Sarah Chen, known to colleagues as the Warden, was fighting a losing battle. The design to demise life cycle of the mega constellation required the continuous atmospheric incineration of 200,000 satellites annually. Each burning spacecraft released 30 kilograms of aluminum oxide nanoparticles into the stratosphere, 360 metric tons of metallic pollution per year, over 600% above natural levels.
These alumina nanoparticles don't just disappear, Marcus. They catalyze chlorine activation reactions, depleting stratospheric ozone. They absorb solar radiation, heating the mesosphere by 1.5 degrees Celsius, disrupting the polar vortex. We're creating a metallic shroud that will poison our atmosphere for decades.
Sarah, I understand your concerns, but look at what we've achieved. 100 gigawatts of AI compute capacity, enough processing power to solve climate change, cure diseases, optimize global logistics. The constellation provides decentralized, uncensorable intelligence directly to citizens worldwide, bypassing terrestrial choke points entirely.
Dr. Hassan, Dr. Chen, that uncensorable capability you celebrate is precisely what concerns the Department of Defense. A private corporate entity now controls the flow of information, intelligence, and capital from an untouchable vantage point above sovereign airspace. This constellation represents digital occupation of the highest order.
Commander Thorne, environmental collapse doesn't respect national borders. When this metallic shroud disrupts global climate systems, it won't matter who controls the satellites.
The Golden Dome Initiative exists precisely to prevent such scenarios, Dr. Chen. We maintain orbital kinetic interceptors capable of surgical strikes against key infrastructure nodes. If this constellation threatens state authority or global stability, we have the means to restore terrestrial control.
Commander Elias Thorne, director of the National Orbital Defense Initiative, represented the old guard. To him, the compute fabric wasn't human progress, it was an existential threat to the nation-state itself. The constellation processed decentralized financial transactions, routed encrypted communications for dissidents, and generated intelligence entirely beyond terrestrial law. In Thorne's mind, hard borders must exist, even in the vacuum of space.
Commander, the constellation's distributed architecture is specifically designed to be resilient. There is no single point of failure, no master control node you can simply destroy to bring down the network. The optical inter-satellite link mesh is self-healing.
Every network has choke points, Dr. Hassan. The optical inter-satellite link mesh requires coordination nodes to route traffic efficiently. Our intelligence indicates Node Tango 77 serves as the primary AI routing hub. Remove that, and you force the system to rely on terrestrial ground stations that we can regulate.
You're both missing the bigger picture. Marcus, your crash clock is now reading 12 hours. 12 hours until catastrophic collision if the satellites lose situational awareness. Commander, any kinetic strike could trigger a cascade that destroys everything we've built in orbit for the past 60 years.
By March 15, 2034, the constellation was complete. 1 million orbital compute nodes, each the size of a city bus, each equipped with massive deployable radiator wings, all choreographed in a delicate dance through congested orbital shells just 50 kilometers thick. The system generated more artificial intelligence processing power than had ever existed on Earth, but the price was a hyper-pressurized kinetic bomb waiting for a spark.
Final telemetry check complete. All orbital shells are at maximum capacity. Launch cadence is holding steady at 4 flights per day. Sarah, this is it. Orbital Enlightenment. Infinite compute power. Zero terrestrial energy constraints. True artificial general intelligence distributed across the cosmos itself.
Marcus, the crash clock is now reading 4 hours. 4 hours until catastrophic collision. Your perfect autonomous machine is one software failure away from becoming a perfect autonomous bomb. We need to shut down launches immediately.
The decision has been made. We cannot allow a private entity to maintain this level of control over global information infrastructure. The constellation's master AI routing node will be neutralized. This is not a request, Dr. Hassan. This is a national security imperative.
Act 2. The Strike and the Shroud. March 15, 2034, 14:30 GMT. Commander Thorne made his decision. A surgical kinetic strike from a Golden Dome interceptor against what intelligence had identified as the primary AI routing node. The strike was intended to be precise, limited, designed merely to force network traffic through regulated terrestrial ground stations.
Golden Dome Control, this is Gatekeeper Actual. Authorization confirmed for kinetic strike on target designation Tango 77. Single interceptor, surgical precision. We're restoring sovereign control over orbital communications infrastructure. Execute on my command.
Gatekeeper Actual, Golden Dome Control, Interceptor deployed and tracking. Impact in 30 seconds. Target acquired and locked.
Execute.
Control, we have multiple red alarms across the primary ISL mesh network. I'm seeing, Jesus Christ, optical links are going dark across the entire 550-kilometer shell. The routing node is gone, and the satellites are losing coordination.
Marcus, the ELVO algorithms need real-time telemetry sharing to coordinate collision avoidance. If they can't communicate, they can't maintain the sworn choreography.
I'm seeing drift patterns across the constellation. Without coordinated micro-adjustments, they're beginning to... No. This can't be happening. Crash clock is now reading 40 minutes. 40 minutes!
Marcus, what's the collision probability now?
18 minutes. The satellites are drifting blind. They're massive objects traveling at 10 kilometers per second with no way to coordinate avoidance maneuvers.
At orbital velocities of 10 kilometers per second, kinetic energy becomes devastating. A piece of debris just 10 centimeters in diameter impacts with the force of a truck bomb. The first collision occurred 37 minutes after the strike. Node designation Alpha 4492 collided with a drifting compute cluster, releasing over 15,000 fragments into the densely packed orbital shell.
We're losing telemetry across multiple shells. I count 173 nodes dark and counting. The fragments are striking adjacent satellites. It's a chain reaction. The massive radiator wings are shattering like glass, sending debris into neighboring orbital planes.
Marcus, how many legacy communication satellites are in the same orbital regime?
Roughly 8,000 legacy satellites across all the major constellations. OneWeb, Kuiper, Starlink Gen 2. Sarah, they're all in the debris field. The Cascade is reaching medium Earth orbit.
GPS constellation?
GPS is offline. All weather monitoring satellites, gone. Earth observation systems, gone. We've lost our eyes in the sky completely.
Control, what's the extent of the debris field?
Commander, we're tracking over 2 million fragments larger than 1 centimeter. The debris storm is expanding exponentially. All orbital regimes from 400 to 2,000 kilometers are compromised.
48 hours. That's how long it took for the Kessler Cascade to consume not just the compute fabric, but every active satellite in low and medium Earth orbit. Over 80% of humanity's space infrastructure destroyed in an exponential storm of metal fragments traveling at hypervelocity. The sky was sealed.
Power grid failures are cascading across North America. Without GPS timing signals, the phaser measurement units can't maintain AC phase synchronization across continental distances. We're seeing rolling blackouts from New York to California.
The environmental impact is even worse than I predicted. All those burning satellite fragments just released millions of tons of aluminum oxide into the atmosphere at once. We've lost our ability to monitor global greenhouse gas emissions, deforestation, ocean temperatures. We're flying blind into climate chaos.
Global supply chains have ground to a halt without satellite navigation. Commercial aviation is grounded. Maritime shipping is reverting to celestial navigation. What have we done?
The immediate consequences were catastrophic. Without GPS timing signals, critical infrastructure failed globally. Weather forecasting reverted to local observation only, leaving millions unprepared for extreme events. The estimated economic impact exceeded $1 billion per day, but the long-term costs would prove far greater.
Without satellites to monitor methane leaks, track deforestation, or measure ocean salinity, we've lost our ability to understand how our planet's climate system is changing. The metallic shroud from all that burning aluminum is already disrupting the polar vortex. Agricultural yields are becoming unpredictable without satellite weather data.
I built the most sophisticated orbital network in history,
and in 48 hours it became a prison around our planet. 8 years of work, 1 million satellites, the promise of unlimited knowledge, all gone. And now no one can reach space at all.
Act 3. Piercing the Veil. 40 years later, the year 2074, humanity had adapted to a disconnected world. Terrestrial networks had been hardened, alternative timing systems deployed, but the orbital realm remained a lethal debris field, a glass cage preventing any return to space. Until now.
Laser array online. Adaptive optics calibrated for atmospheric turbulence at 4,000 meters altitude. Sodium guide stars locked and tracking. We have target acquisition on debris cluster designation Echo 7 Alpha. Range 800 kilometers. Fragment size approximately 5 centimeters. Velocity 10.3 kilometers per second.
Confirmed, Laser Station Atacama. We're tracking the same cluster from Mauna Kea. Coordinate fire for maximum delta V on the target. Remember, we need 0.2 meters per second deceleration to drop perigee into the atmosphere.
Copy that. Megawatt class pulse laser charging. 10 nanosecond pulse duration, 16 kilojoules per pulse. When this hits that fragment, surface ablation will create a plasma jet. The reaction force will provide precise momentum transfer. Physics doesn't lie, even 40 years after the blackout.
The scavenger represented a new generation. Born after the collapse, they knew nothing of the age of orbital enlightenment. To them, space was not a realm of infinite possibility, but a dangerous obstacle to be cleared grain by grain. They operated the ground-based laser ablation systems, humanity's primary tool for reclaiming the sky.
40 years of this work. My parents' generation built those satellites, thinking they were reaching for the stars. Instead, they built a cage around the world. Now we spend our lives tracking fragments smaller than my fist as they race through space at impossible speeds. Each pulse of this laser costs more energy than my village uses in a week. But today is different.
Mauna Kea to all stations. Orbital Dynamics team confirms we have a window, 7 minutes 43 seconds, when the debris density in corridor Charlie Delta drops below critical threshold. All ground stations must coordinate laser pulses to clear the remaining fragments. This is our only chance for the next 18 months.
Understood. Today we're not just clearing debris. Today we're opening a corridor. After 40 years of darkness, maybe we can finally reconnect humanity. Laser capacitors at full charge. Targeting system locked on debris cluster, Echo 7 Alpha. Atacama station ready for coordinated fire.
Debris clearing command to all stations. Magnetic drone teams report successful capture of the largest derelict chassis. Launch corridor is as clean as we can make it. Window opens in 3 minutes. Remember, we have exactly 7 minutes and 43 seconds to thread the needle.
Roger that. 40 years of preparation for less than 8 minutes of flight. One satellite, one chance to reconnect humanity. If this works, children born after the blackout will finally hear voices from across the ocean again. My grandmother used to tell me about the time before, when you could call anyone, anywhere on Earth, through satellites.
All stations. Window is open. Commence debris clearing operation. Fire when ready.
Laser firing. First pulse away. Target illuminated. Plasma ablation confirmed. Fragment is decelerating as predicted. The Stefan Boltzmann law is working in our favor for once. Continuous pulse sequence engaged.
Laser stations. This is Recovery Vehicle Sierra 1. We're watching your light show from down here. That plasma ablation is beautiful work. Keep those fragments moving. We need every millimeter of that corridor clear.
Sierra 1, Atacama. We're pushing our laser array beyond safe operating limits. The adaptive optics are struggling with atmospheric turbulence, but we're maintaining target lock. 5 more minutes of coordinated fire.
Mauna Kea firing sequence complete. Debris fragment has deorbited. Corridor is clear for launch. Sierra 1, you have go for launch. 7 minutes to thread the needle and reach medium Earth orbit.
Launch control to recovery vehicle Sierra 1. You have clearance for launch. This is it. First orbital insertion attempt in 40 years. Launch when ready.
Sierra 1 copies. 40 years since the last successful orbital insertion. The satellite isn't much. Basic communications relay heavily armored against debris impacts, but it's enough to connect two continents for the first time since the blackout. Ignition in 10, 9, 8.
The launch was perfect. 6 minutes and 37 seconds through the lethal debris field, dodging fragments of the dreams that once promised to elevate humanity to a Kardashev Type II civilization. The single communications satellite reached medium Earth orbit, safely above the worst of the debris storm.
Atacama Station to Launch Control. Telemetry confirms successful orbital insertion. The satellite is online and transmitting. We did it. After 40 years in the dark, humanity has reopened the sky.
First international communications relay in 4 decades coming online. Tokyo, this is Mauna Kea. Do you copy?
Mauna Kea, this is Tokyo ground. We copy you loud and clear. The Pacific is no longer silent. Welcome back to the connected world.
My whole life, I've been cleaning up the mess my parents' generation made when they reached too far, too fast. The 1 million satellites that promised infinite knowledge became a cage around our world. But maybe we've finally learned something.
The glass cage teaches us that the universe doesn't forgive hubris. The laws of thermodynamics, orbital mechanics, and physics itself cannot be negotiated with or disrupted by venture capital. The 1 million satellites that promised to elevate humanity instead nearly destroyed our ability to reach for the stars.
We learned something in those 40 years of darkness. Space isn't our birthright. It's a privilege we must earn with patience, precision, and respect for the fundamental forces that govern the cosmos. The single satellite we launched today isn't a conquest. It's a whisper of humility reaching across the void.
The architect's dream of orbital enlightenment died in 48 hours of cascading collisions. The warden's warnings about the metallic shroud proved prophetic as aluminum oxides disrupted Earth's climate for decades. The gatekeeper's attempt to preserve sovereignty destroyed the very infrastructure he sought to control. But the scavenger's patient work, grain by grain, fragment by fragment, finally pierced the veil.
The stars remain. The void still calls. But now we approach with the wisdom earned through collapse, the knowledge paid for in generations of isolation. We understand that every satellite must justify its existence against the Stefan Boltzmann equation. Every launch must account for its debris footprint. Every orbital mission must prove it's worth the risk.
The glass cage has been pierced, not shattered. One satellite where there were once a million, a whisper where there was once a roar. And perhaps, in our caution, we have finally learned to build sustainably among the stars. The sky is no longer sealed, but it remains fragile, and that fragility, hard won through decades of darkness, may be humanity's greatest teacher. End of transmission.